Hey y'all, welcome back to another one of my videos. If this is your first time seeing me, my name is Sam and I tuft rugs. And we are at the 1 year mark since I have purchased my tufting equipment and started this journey. So I figured what better way to celebrate than to break it all down and do a deep dive to share with you all everything I've learned, everything I've struggled with, and really kind of just highlighting some things that I don't really see other tufters talking about on here. So let's go. I have a lot of stuff that I can be talking about. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break up the video into like two different videos, if that makes sense. I'm gonna do two different videos. Let's get into the first part. All right, so part one, we're gonna be talking about like the technicality, like what you need, the initial costs, tips and tricks, that kind of thing. And then part two, we're gonna do like business stuff, pricing, invoicing, all of that. I got my handy dandy notebook here in hopes to try to streamline this for you, but last December, I decided after months of researching, I'm talking like 8 months, y'all need to research this and make sure it's something that you want to do. I purchased the tufting kit from tuftinggun.com. I believe at the time it was only like $280, but I just looked and it's like $360. So sorry. I do have a code that you can use for like 15% off. You can research around and try to find cheaper options, but this is just what I did. So I got this kit. This is the exact kit that it came with. It came with the gun, which is a cut pile, and then it came with the frame. It's a smaller frame. I think it's like 2x2, 2.5 by 2.5. Came with a decent amount of cloth, enough to do like 2 or 3 frame fulls. Then it came with like a schematic for the tufting machine, extra scissors, Allen keys, all of that. Now, when I say research, I mean research, because there are tufting machines on Amazon and other tufting suppliers that sell cheaper options. But you also need to be aware that we live in a day and age where people like to scam people. So just do your due diligence in checking. I did recently purchase another gun from Amazon, and I'll put up a clip of me opening it. I have not tested it out yet, but I will let you guys know how it does in comparison to this because it was a good amount cheaper. Now, there's a ton of videos on the internet about all the materials that you need. I made a list of everything that you'll need, and I can put it all up on the screen for you to see it really quickly. Just know that everything that I use, excluding the yarn, is about $550. So it's not a cheap hobby. All right, so now that we're familiar with the initial costs and the materials that not only you need to get up front, but keep in mind, you're gonna have to replenish these materials. I'll throw up everything that I am constantly buying on here. And so that's gonna be a cost that's ongoing that you're gonna have to calculate and figure out and take into account for in order to make a profit. And we'll talk more about that in part two. With all that being said, one of the main things that I have struggled with that I don't see a lot of people talking about that I want to take a moment and dive into is yarn. A little basics for you. This is a skein of yarn. It is 6 ounces of yarn. This does not get you as much as you would think, especially if you're doubling up when you're tufting through the cloth. This specific skein right here costs about $4.50, not on sale, no coupons, none of that stuff. So for example, I did a 4x5 rug recently and I spent $120 in just yarn on that thing. Now, if you're frugal and strategic, you definitely can get yarn for cheaper than that, but you just have to pay attention to what your local store sells, when it has sales, the coupons that you can use, and all of that stuff. My biggest struggle with yarn would be color coordination or just picking out your colors in general. I talk kind of about this in my other videos, my Tough With Me videos, but it's really hard to strategically pick out your colors. A lot of times when you get a color, it doesn't necessarily look the same in your hand as it does once it's tufted through. And so not only is it hard to just pick out your colors in general, but it gets especially tricky when you're trying to match specific colors that you have in a design, or if you're trying to coordinate 2 different colors together or shade your colors out. And so I would kind of take your time to really plan out your colors in coordination with what you have available either at your local store or being able to have shipped to your house. So far, the best way I have found to get through this color picking struggle is to put your design on your computer or a tablet or whatever you're using. And then I use Canva has a color picker where you can like highlight a color and it will pull it out and show you what that exact color is. I use that and compare it to the online images of the yarn. And I can do a more in-depth like tutorial video on this. So if that's something that you're interested in, then drop a comment below and ask for it and I will deliver. But really taking the time to examine your colors and match them together and kind of put everything on one sheet of paper versus just thinking like, oh, I think pink and green will look nice. There's a lot of pink and green shades at the store when you go. So you should have kind of an idea of what you want and put them together to make sure it's looking how you're envisioning it. Something else that I've started doing is if I'm really unsure of the exact tone or shade that I need, or if I can't find something that's exact in the store, because it really is going to depend on what's available in your local area. Not every place is going to have the same type of yarn and not every place is going to have what you're looking for. And so you can kind of see back here where I was testing different shades out. So I'll get a shade that looks similar to what I'm looking for, but then I'm also going to get like the next shade up and the next shade down just in case. And if I don't use it, then I can just save it for a later date. So something else, dealing with the color of your yarn, I would highly recommend making little samples. I just use this on the extra cloth I have on my frame, and I write the brand and the color with a decent sized little patch so I know what this color looks like once it's tufted. I also then am able to take two different ones and see what these colors look like together, figure out the proper shading that I'm looking for. In addition to making little yarn samples, when you are making a rug or you have an order or something, I would also recommend keeping track of what brand and what colors that you're using. That way, if you have to redo it or if you need to buy more, or if you know, whatever the case is, you're going to make multiple. I know some people only do one of one rugs, but if you're just going to make a bunch of them, you know exactly what materials and what colors you use, so that way you can quickly get restocked on. Here's a really quick example of me tracking an order. I'll go more in depth than this in my part 2 video, breaking down like invoicing and business aspects of everything, but I would definitely recommend like keeping track of what you're doing, especially if you're like me. Okay, moving on from the yarn, that was like the main thing that I don't really see a lot of people talking about, and I'm still learning, so I'm sure I'll have an update for you in the future. But a few more things before we wrap this part 1 up. One is I very quickly, after I got comfortable tufting on this, realized that I needed a bigger frame. And so I had my mans make this one out of extra like pallet wood, but consider that once you are comfortable tufting, you're probably going to want a bigger frame. And something that I feel like you should keep in mind before you just build your frame is you're going to want to make sure that you have an available cloth to get like the size. So this is a 4x5. So I made sure that I was able to find cloth bigger than a 4x5 so that will fit on this frame and I don't have to worry about finding cloth in this size. Another thing that I didn't really think about when I started was having like a storage system for all of the yarn that I'm gonna buy. And so I kind of have it all thrown up on my pegboard. If it's not on the pegboard and it's not rolled, I haven't used it yet, then I keep it in the skeins. And this used to be color coordinated, but it's the holidays. I've been a hot mess. So definitely make sure you have room to store the yarn because you're gonna use a lot. And also think about, are you gonna be winding this up beforehand? Do you have somewhere to store that yarn? Those kinds of things. Something else that I just wanna take a minute to really put out there is if you're gonna start tufting, don't do it thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna make a bunch of shit to sell, because it doesn't work that way. I have so much stuff that has not sold, and part of that is my own fault for not pushing it out on social media constantly. And that's a whole nother battle in and of itself. I'll probably put that in part 2 because it definitely is like a full-time job to run social media. All right, y'all, if you've made it this far, I appreciate you. I'm gonna end this part 1 just highlighting some things that I have noticed really elevate your rugs. And again, if you watch my other Tough With Me videos, I talk about these things as I've progressed in my journey. But one is like your line work. Your lines should all be facing the same direction for the most part. They should be nice and tight and really similar. Like you shouldn't have crazy lines over here and tight lines over here. You're gonna be able to notice a difference. Another thing that I would say is like, take your time. You need some patience to do this. Really take your time. Don't be rushing through, because that's also gonna show up in your finished product. Trimming. Trim in between your different colors. Take the time to trim 6 times after you've finished your rug. It really, I'll put up a not trimmed and trimmed rug, and I mean, it speaks for itself. Now, there are tons of really good resources for you to watch to see how people are really making their rugs look legit as hell. I'll throw up on the screen a couple of people that I would like to say they're my mentors, even though they don't know who I am. They really do like lead the game, at least for me. If you have somebody else that you're following, drop it down and like we can all just follow each other. All right, I think that pretty much wraps it up for part 1. If I missed something or if I didn't do enough deep diving on something and you want to know about it, reach out to me. I'll throw my social media up or drop a comment. I'm going to go ahead and do part 2 where we're going to talk about pricing, invoicing. I'll touch on the social media aspect of things because like I said, that's a whole nother job in and of itself. Thank you guys for coming back and watching my channel. If you liked it, subscribe because you know what it do here on YouTube. Bye!